everything you read in the mainstream media is 100% true. Please, go back to your jobs. If you have not got a job, you are a worthless human being. Consume, consume, consume until we have no planet left to consume. What you need to do is buy things that you don't need. That's the best way to support the economy. Smiling is bad for the economy. Please do not smile. Sir, please, move swiftly to your next shopping experience. It's very important for children to be trained in ripping people's bodies to shreds. So come and buy some games with lots of killing and destruction and war. Independent thoughts lead to chaos. Thinking is boring. Thinking is hard work and it's not worth the energy. If you see a Buddhist on the street, try and get them to leave their religion. Buddhists are trying to get us to meditate. Meditation is a waste of good shopping time. Miserable people shop more, so please remain as miserable as you can.
You know, other aliens on my planet, they call you sheeple, not people. But I will not stoop so low. It's very nice that we have security in a corporate zone imitating public servants. Be nice to me.
You're not allowed. Not allowed. Not so.
What are we not allowed to do?
It's only paperwork.
My paperwork? Can I ask you, sir, why are you dressed up impersonating a police officer?
I suggest you put your megaphones down and stop protesting, please.
You're suggesting that I put my megaphone down and stop protesting?
Now.
I am not protesting. I am just speaking through a megaphone.
Well, you're not allowed.
And what I do is give people like you hugs.
No, you won't.
What you need is a hug.
You won't, sir.
No, you do need a hug.
Excuse me, sir. You call me?
Yes.
Thanks to Upload Cinema. Good morning everyone. Welcome to What Design Can Do. Let me start by asking who was here yesterday? Can I see? Oh, a lot of people. Well, for the newcomers, I'm Hadassah de Boer. I live in Amsterdam. I'm a TV presenter and a journalist, and I'm very honored to moderate the program here in the main hall. And my work as a presenter is mostly focused on arts and culture, but the last years I've been working a lot for NGOs. And it's really interesting to see those different worlds come together here at this conference. Yesterday it was really exciting to see architects and designers and writers and curators come together to think about solutions and challenges for the future. But because it's such an interesting crossover, touching so many different disciplines, I'm very happy that I have a co-presenter. He is part designer, part architect, part journalist, and he lives in the wonderful city of Berlin. Please welcome Lucas Verheij.
Yeah, we thought it was a good idea if we did both, a woman and a man.
Yeah.
And we both know a little more than I know alone. Well, we did it yesterday.
So modest.
And we had a great day. Very inspirational, great speakers, good interaction via Twitter, as you've seen. WDCD, and some interaction, some live and some SMSing. So we hope that you will participate again, because it brings us all further in a collective intelligence we need in this profession.
Well, let's invite the man whose idea it all was, Richard van Laken. So, Richard, second day. So what was your impression of yesterday?
My impression of yesterday was that, of course, it was an amazing day. I think that everybody can say that too, if you were here yesterday. What I saw yesterday was quite an interesting contrast between the situation here in Holland and on the other side of the world. I think that we as Dutch people work in a very conceptual way. And on the other side of the world, for example, in India, people are working with really pressing problems. But what I really liked about that, how to say that, those two worlds, is that they are both very engaged. I mean, people from India or our great architects and designers from the Netherlands, they're all very engaged. So that made me very happy. And after lunch, I saw something else. And that was more, how do you say that, a personal engagement. What can I do as a designer? And I think that was more well, not more focused, but there was a strong focus on, I think you can call that authorship. And I think that Oliviero Toscani, who closed the day yesterday, pressed that with two quite interesting questions. He asked the audience how many designers are here, and not everybody, but a lot of people rose their hands. And then he asked, and how many authors are here? And then only 5 hands. We only saw 5 hands. So I think that's quite an interesting question when you're an author or not, and what can design do when you're not, when you also work as an author.
I felt some tension, and correct me if I'm wrong, I felt a sort of...
You're wrong.
I always feel things growing. I felt a growing tension and critique against the ego-driven, vain designer, who is in fact mostly interested in success and this ego. Did you feel that as well?
Yes, I did, and but to be honest, I think that the designers and architects that we saw yesterday, of course, we all have egos as designers. I think that's quite important. You need an ego to create.
Is that true?
Well, I think so, but maybe you think differently about that. But I think that the most important thing is that as a creative, you put your ego into a bigger context. Those were the difficult questions, huh?
Easy question. You present this conference as an activist conference, so there are a lot of things you can do to be an activist. What can we do?
Well, as an audience, of course, today we can listen to all those great speakers. That's not very activist, but I think that the speakers, the designers and creators that we'll see today, are activists, in the sense that they are active people. They want to do things. But as an audience, you can also do things. Yesterday there were 5 beautiful breakout sessions. You can attend these breakout sessions. At the end of the day, everything will come together, all the conclusions of these breakout sessions, and they will be into a book that we're producing at this moment on location here in the Stad Schouwburg. So please be part of that. I would like to invite you to be part of that. You can also use I already pressed that yesterday, but you can use your program book. In the heart, you can find a form, and you can write or sketch or draw your thoughts about what design can do.
Yeah,
and
so
you
it's
can
a centerfold.
Yeah.
It's a different centerfold as we mostly see. It's a blank centerfold because we want you to draw and to sketch.
Absolutely.
Not nude women, because they are mostly on centerfolds.
Yeah, if you have a good idea what design can do for nude women, I would love to hear that.
Okay, so please draw all your nude women in this centerfold, because it will be added into the book that we will present at the end of the day.
And the boards, the expo boards, the empty expo boards. You can.
Yeah, what you see here, the form will be exhibited. You can exhibit it on the boards that you can find all over the Stad Schouwburg. So once again, please do that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Richard van der Laken. So yesterday we focused on access to the basics and access to the cities, and this morning we will concentrate on access to the public. And the force of the collective has never been more powerful than today due to the use of social media. But at the same time, political movements, NGOs and companies are looking for a way to attract the public in this almost completely open and transparent society. So today we will present some strategy to put the people in motion. Today's first speaker is convinced that architecture can play a very important role in the behavior of people, even in the survival of democracy. According to him, architects that keep their eye on the bigger picture and focus more on serving the society as a whole than on short-term profit deserve to be honored. Please welcome the director of the Netherlands Architecture Institute, Ole Bouman.
Goedemorgen, Richard. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hadassa de Boer. Thank you, Lucas Verwij, for introducing me. I would like to refer immediately to the few words that Lucas was saying about the attitude of design today to go beyond the ego. I think it's already in the title, what design can do. That's definitely not about a claim culture. It's not about the claim for fame. It's not about the claim for authorship. It's about the suggestion. It's about what can we contribute? What can we contribute to beauty? What can we contribute to the kind of emotion that we have living through our lives? What can we contribute to our life itself, especially at the time when life is under siege? I will explain. But let me start first with the Netherlands Architecture Institute. This is the logo of the NEI, designed by a certain Richard van der Laken and Pepijn Zurberg. And this is the idea that we want to convey the next couple of years with the NEI, the Netherlands Architecture Institute, not a temple for architects or for architecture itself, not this claim culture anymore, but to open it to the public, to make it a public space, to make it a part of the city. This is how you maybe remember the NEI. The access to the temple, the access to the work of the great masters, great exhibitions. Of course, you may memorize these exhibitions with fondness, but as you see, to access this building, you had to pass a small bridge across the pool that was like a big divide between the city and the discipline. We removed this bridge. Literally, it was taken away and replaced by this design here in an animation. And you see already how a big deck is now in front of the building, like a public square where many things can happen, and you can enter directly and fluidly from the city into this interior of the city. And here you see the final stage of the construction of the deck. I show you a few examples of the interior of the new NEI as it will be disclosed in 5 weeks from now, on June 30. Here, the permanent exhibition now under construction, and as you can see, visitors not just picture pieces of architecture, but by using the flashlight itself, they can animate the walls with these strips that are radiant, with its radiant material. And also here, a ground plan of this exhibition, that you pass through these corridors, have an experience of what the city feels like. The city as an experience, ending in the blue zone with the future of the city, where you as a citizen, as a visitor, as citizen, may decide what kind of future you want. You have the choice. It's not a perfect picture. It's not all set. It's an open question. Here, the previous situation with the counter where you bought your ticket for your individual or group experience of a museum in a traditional sense. And this will be the new entrance zone, where you may start to play with these elements, start to build your own spaces, and start to create your own world, making you an architect as visitor. And this is another example to foster bigger accessibility, not just to the museum itself, the institute itself, but also to your city itself. This is the augmented reality app that we recently developed. It's available in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague and Den Bosch. And as of tomorrow, it will also be available in Utrecht. The funny thing about this app is that, as you can see, you may activate the database on location, because it's geolocation based. You activate the database and you start to check what was the scene in the past. So you push the button verleden, the past, it's now also in English, don't worry. Or you want to have more information about the present, so you push the button heden, or present. Or you want to know what will be at this place in the near future. So you can activate all kinds of animations or 3D models of buildings that will be there in the future. So in a way, as new layers of experience rather than just the physical environment around you, you may change your vision of your environment by choosing different time layers. You have more time added to space. And as you can see here, an example that you point at the Bijenkorf here on Dam Square in Amsterdam, and like an overlay on the building itself, you see the former stock exchange built by Zogger that used to be there late 19th century. Just a few examples of trying to innovate a museum, a knowledge institution, a temple of the discipline into a zone for you, to make it more accessible. But of course, this is all peanuts compared to the issues that you are facing and your fellow citizens are facing every day. What design must know is more important than what single individuals are trying to do. We have to learn from the context we live in. What design must know is that architecture or design can be an architecture of consequence if it deals with the basic issues of our time. The food issue, for instance, such an important issue for everybody, probably the most important one. We all need food, but we all know that the way we organize food is a dead-end street. Here, the food miles that we are passing every day, these are so extensive that you can imagine that the energy use that comes with food production is enormous. Then health, the health issue. Just an example of how health affects the way we organize our spaces. If you see that here we have the average calorie consumption since 1961, as of here and here in early 21st century, you see the increase, especially in the modernized world, and you can imagine what issues of obesitas are emerging. These are design issues. Energy. We want to cool down. We want to warm up wherever we are. We want to climatize our environment always and everywhere. But this is the price we pay for it. Fossil fuel still far above all the alternative productions of energy. And here you see the inclination of the use of fossil fuel. Then the issue of space. Of course, the shrinking cities that we see at so many places in the world. Places that have a kind of unattractiveness to their citizens, but not just unattractiveness, also a lack of economical critical mass. But also, on the other side, growing cities, global cities, with amazing amounts of people getting together in these urban congregations. The time issue, the waste of time every single day in the West and the East. And can't we do more with this time that we constantly lose? Can we not produce time rather than lose time through design? The social cohesion issue that we are discussing every day, that we read about every day in our newspapers. This is how we organize our spaces because of a lack of social cohesion. And this is around the corner, more or less. And this is really around the corner. How we think we are in one city, Amsterdam, but if you do a little bit more research, you will understand that we live at least in 3 cities. The historical inner core of the city, the suburb, Almere, and then of course like the Westerse tuinsteden, where we have a tendency of monoculture and ghettoization. 3 different groups of people living in one city. And then finally, the issue of value creation. We are wasting value all the time. Wasting value and wasting money that may have created great value for all of us, but spent on these kind of solipsistic projects. So that's the context that we are facing, that we are living in. What design has done is, of course, a question of responsibility. And it's also a question of records. What are the records of design vis-à-vis this context? Well, first of all, of course we know that design has done a great job in creating value for some cities, like here in Bilbao, or here in Liège. This is, of course, a tremendous achievement of design, that it may be able to produce or to shift certain situations in cities from derelict areas to new bustling cities. And we still rely on this approach here in Amsterdam. And then, of course, we also know that we have made tremendous achievements in exporting design, not just as beauty, as forms of delight, but also as drivers of thinking in a new way, vehicles for innovative thinking. And also we know that this is a major success, design as contributing to the income of multinationals based in the Netherlands. And I even give you a more dramatic picture of the success of design by pointing at the city of Copenhagen, where in a few years they will have a new architectural institute designed by Rem Koolhaas. This is the ultimate picture of success of Dutch design. Rem Koolhaas building the new architecture center of Copenhagen based on an architectural policy in Denmark, very much based on the Dutch one. Architects like MVR de V building in Copenhagen according to their agenda. Architects like Bjarke Ingels relying on his experience at OMA for years and adopting the approaches that he learned there. And architects like Stuart Soeters mimicking what he has done in Java Island in Amsterdam to reproduce this concept in the city of Copenhagen. So Copenhagen is, in a way, New Holland. I hope not too many Danish people in the audience. And if so, I'm happy to take your questions. What design should do? Well, as you can imagine, probably not doing the same as in the past. There should be sound here. I hear some sound in the back of the space, but
they're working very hard. 6 men. It's gonna work.
never mind. You can stop the animation. It's okay. The basic message is clear. Architecture, relying on these 7 issues that I was presenting in the beginning, can also play a role to deal with those issues, to make a big shift. Next slide. Architecture can extend, create space. Architecture can synchronize us. Architecture can reach out to people. Design can do the same. Architecture can make us more healthy, can help us to produce food in a more proper way. It can do all these things. And I think for the remainder of the presentation, I should give you a couple of examples. Here, for instance, work that the NAI is doing in this respect. This is a letter sent by Wang Bo. He's the chief design officer of Vanke, the biggest housing developer in China, producing 1 million houses a year. It's a letter about how Dutch architects could contribute to facing the enormous challenge of hundreds of millions of Chinese people seeking better places. Not just a quantitative need of space by people coming from the villages and going to the cities and trying to look for new homes, but also the rising middle class, equally tens, hundreds of thousands of people seeking a place for themselves, a more individual space. And if they all would pursue their Chinese dream, that would be disastrous for humanity. So we need concepts to find cities, to create cities, to make cities in China based on knowledge that we have learned all over the place, all over the world, including the 100 years of housing experience in the Netherlands. So we are setting up this work in China. We are trying to create matches between Dutch expertise of clients and especially architects and designers with Vanke and other developers in China. And we're doing this in a kind of new branch for the NAI, together with the Fonds BKVB Studio for Unsolicited Architecture. An architecture that creates its own agenda, that shows what it can do, even if no client yet is able to ask the right question. And here another innovation of the UR app that will be launched tomorrow in Utrecht, where no longer it's just our database that can be activated by the user of the app, but it's also the user itself who can post content to the database. So here you will see the interface where you can decide this building, this place, this square, this street is so important to me, or this is a place that I have an idea for, I want to put it into the open, I want to present it on the public domain, and you post it to UR, and you create an expanding database in the process. And this is how it works. So the app becomes a public accessible space for public debate. And this is another example of how we try to put things on the agenda that for a very long time were not sexy in the design discourse. Because maybe of the claim culture, the ego culture. The issue of vacancy. Here, the project by Rietveld Landscape in the pavilion of the Giardini in the Biennale of Venice. A kind of vast overview of thousands and thousands of empty buildings in the Netherlands, all built under construction with an architectural ambition in the beginning and now vacant. And you see at the far end, for instance, the Shell building, also a problematic vacancy for a long time already. And as you will remember, thinking of the film museum that comes next to it, there is a strange tension between the ambition to build a new space, a new building, a new icon, and the vacancy of another great icon just 100 yards away. And this was, beyond the landscape of vacancy, also the first step in proposing things, what to do with a vacancy, what can design do in making this kind of analysis and creating kind of taxonomy of different uses, different programs based on the space of the building, based on the location, and based on the identity of the building in the neighborhood. So trying to invite creative industries to start reclaiming those empty buildings. And this is an architecture of consequence that has such an incredible promising agenda. Here, for instance, the work by 2x4 architects to recombine housing with working areas, to go beyond this kind of incredible zoning that we know in this country so well, and try to recombine different programs into one single space, combining functions and create a new landscape. Much more healthy, much more sustainable, and also much more inspiring for new design devices. Or here, Van Bergen Kolpa Architects, another wasteland between Delft and The Hague, a proposition to create a new agricultural land, no longer producing in the own industrial agenda of food production that we know so well from this country, but relating directly to the needs of the local people in the neighborhoods at the outskirts of The Hague and Rotterdam. And creating, by doing so, a new vegetation in the area because it's based on the variety and the mixed cultures of the people there. And here, Happy Islands project by West8, also a combination of purposes, new protection of the coastline of the Netherlands, very important, very topical, of course, in the climate change discussion, but also finally finding new space in offshore development and resuming a great tradition in Dutch spatial affairs. Here another proposal, the Dependance Rotterdam by Zus Architects. This high-rise development was the option of the local government, and they said no. Look at the plinth, look at the spaces, look at the buildings that are already there, especially here on the right side. This building can be reused. It might have been taken as a kind of written off volume, but by inviting all kinds of small businesses, creative industries, they enliven the space and to create a new plinth. And especially in this time of crisis, this may be an approach that is very worthwhile. Here, OMA, Zeekracht, a proposition by an architect's office, thinking big. Energy as an issue for architectural design. A new battery for Northwest Europe. And not just a new battery of alternative energy production, but also creating a new ecology in the North Sea by the reefs that will be designed under the water level. So these are propositions by architects, some of them already materialized, others not yet, but very inspiring, I think, for the architectural discourse. But ultimately, of course, what is really important is to know how these propositions will land, how they will be accepted by the people who are supposed to use them. Testify is the next stage in this development of an agenda, architecture of consequence, the consequence of architecture, the real consequence to real people. So here we have a project, Eigenbouwoper by Raumlabor. This has been a kind of problem of violence in a very vandalized environment where people felt very unsafe in this metro station every day. So they came up with a solution to transform this object to an opera house and to have the users of the station and also locals nearby as players and also, of course, as the public, and to animate the space by doing so, shifting the situation. Or here, favela painting in Rio de Janeiro. And by just using paint, as you may perhaps already know from Tirana in Albania, where the mayor has done the same kind of strategy, by painting the buildings, you create already loyalty. You create affection. You create a kind of attachment to your neighborhood. And you also create work. So, favela painting as an architectural strategy, as a design strategy. And here, another example, the open-air library in Magdeburg by Karel Architects. Also there, problems of economic decline, abandoned industrial plants, unused land and vacancies, unemployment, and by proposing a local library, first by temporary crates and later by a real architecture design, they brought back a certain pride for the neighborhood and knowledge and a kind of respect for each other. Even they brought back Ruhe in die Straße. Here another project by Li Xiaodong, also an area in China, Shaxi, where vacancy of old buildings was very common, poverty issues, and by creating this housing project with a bridge, an incredibly beautiful design that won the Aga Khan Design Prize recently, the community came back to each other, rejuvenated, and embraced this project, design as a breakthrough. And here another example in Caracas, Venezuela, metro cable project by Think Tank, creating this very simple device of transport, hoovering over the favela, and by doing so showing that there are connections in the favela. This tightness, this narrowness of the life in the favela is opened by just seeing the lines above you. So apparently I could continue this discourse. My time is up, so I will not. Examples enough, but of course the real issue is, will this be only pilots? Will this be only exceptions to the rule? Or are we learning from them and creating this into the rule itself? What design will do is all up to you. What design will do is all up to the people who cynically will adopt this approach, continue building houses of cards. Here, the world record holder, House of Card Builder, it's an architect. Or to adopt another approach, design as the bankruptcy assistance in our life. Thank you.
Oude Bouman. So, stay next to you. You showed us some very nice propositions of what architecture should do, but I thought you are the director of the Netherlands Architecture Institute. So what can you do as director?
Well, I think the NAI is doing three things, basically. It's keeping a close watch on good heritage. It's presenting good practices in a museum. And it's providing a podium for debate. I think on all three levels, we can do something vis-à-vis this shift. We have to collect heritage. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot you see is ephemeral. It might be a kind of temporary intervention. I think it's important for national archives to store this heritage and to keep learning from them for future generations. But this is, of course, not the first priority. The major priority for us is to present it, mm-hmm. to show it, as I do here. You know, it's mm-hmm. airing the message, and it's also providing the platform to have people talking about it, but also by doing this studio, for instance, to show that it can work. So to matchmake through this institution between these issues that we know so well in our social context and what design can do, the potential of design.
But can you also, do you also have an influence on these proposals you showed us, that they become real, that they become realized?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we can do is, for instance, if designers come up with a very good idea, as they do many times, mm-hmm. the next step should be to check them through all different dimensions to see whether they are really executable, materializable. First of all, fiscal things, technological things. Are there real clients to be found? Help designers to find clients. Matchmaking, that's what we mean with that. So I think the energy and also the support that we get from government and from society
support of government?
Absolutely.
Okay.
even beyond June 27, yeah. when the support of cultural sector will be gone through a major overhaul, as we all know. Even then, there will be still support for culture. You know, we all emphasize, of course, right now, the major cuts, but in the end, there is still a lot of support too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Ole Bouman, thank you. Ole Bouman showed us the slide of the favela painting, and I think our next speaker knows all about it because he knows what a little color can do. He was trained as an interior architect and interior designer.